round 41. We are starting with a chain 1 as always, single crochet in the chain 1 space, chain 1, front post DC, chain 1, single crochet in the next chain 1 corner space. We begin with 10 single crochet, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we have a little repeat. So we're going to make the small rows where we work a DC, double crochet, chain 1, and then another double crochet in the same front loop, chain 1, and a third double crochet. And I worked all of those double crochets in the same front loop, which I had marked with this stitch marker here. And then I let go of the loop, insert the hook in the first double crochet, pull through and close with a chain 1. Then I'm going to make 3 single crochet. And the first and the last of those 3 goes in the top loops of that double crochet here. The one that's part of this small rows and then the next one. And we repeat that 2 more times. So we work in the front loop here. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and 1 more double crochet. Insert in the first and close with a chain 1. Skip the stitch behind the small rows, 3 single crochet starting in the next stitch, and another time. So this is a third time. DC, chain 1, DC, chain 1, and 1 more DC, close with a chain 1. And then part of the repeat is the 3 single crochet, but we need 4, so we just make 1 more single crochet here. Now we're going to work a DCBB, a double crochet behind and below the next stitch. So that's actually 2 rounds below, and we'll work a DC into that stitch. And then 3 more single crochet. Now this is a butt stitch or rosebud road again. So you know that from the previous round. Our next stitch is one of those butt stitches. In the first I'm going to, so I start with a single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch, and then I place a stitch marker in the third loop of this first of those 3 single crochet that I made in this back loop. So I made the first, placed the stitch marker, and now I'm making 2 more single crochet in that back loop. I find the front loop, turn my work, and I'm working 4 single crochet in that front loop of the same stitch. Continue to turn, and then I close with a slip stitch into that third loop. Find the next stitch after the rosebud, which is this one. 1, 2, 3, and then the next rosebud. Place the stitch marker in the third loop, 2 more single crochet in the same back loop, and now 4 single crochet in the front loop of the same stitch. 2, 3, and 4. And then I close the stitch with a slip stitch in the third loop. And I'm keeping these stitch markers in until I've worked over them in the next round. So I do that another time. Third time, place the stitch marker, 2 more single crochet, 4 single crochet in the front loop only of the same stitch, close the stitch with a slip stitch in the third loop, find the next stitch after the rosebud, and now it's the third time, so we do that 1, 2, 3 times, and then we work a single crochet in the back loop only to check whether you're at the right place. This single crochet in the back loop only should be exactly above the rosebud from 3 rounds below. 3 rounds below. And we start with 3 single crochet and then make a rosebud. So we do the same, just in reverse order. First we did rosebud, 3 single. Now we do 3 single, rosebud. I'm just going to speed this up a little bit. So this was the third time that I made this rosebud. So we have 3 single rosebud, 1, 2, 3 times. And now after the last, I'm going to work 3 more single crochet. Oops, 1, 2, and 3. And that should bring you to this 2 together stitch from the previous round. And again, we're going to work a double crochet in the loops of the stitch that we skipped in the previous round, which is behind and 2 rounds below this 2 together stitch. Now we're going to work 4 single crochet. And then we've got the sequence of the small rows, 3 single, small rows, 3 single, small rows, and then finishing with 10 single crochet. So let's just do that. Small rows, where we double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and the third double crochet in the same front loop, which we may or may not have marked with a stitch marker. Then we skip the stitch behind the small rows, 1, 2, 3 single, and then again double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and another double crochet. Close with a chain 1, 3 single. One more time. Double crochet in that front loop. Chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Close with a chain 1, and then 10 single crochet, which should bring you to, that's 4, to the end of the side. Let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. And then we just continue with the corner again, single, chain 1, front post, chain 1, and then a single in the chain 1 space there. Okay, stitch marker placements. If you, as I said, I leave these in here, and if you want, you can place a stitch marker in this free front loop. We'll be working into that stitch later on. Okay, in round 43. So all you have to do is repeat this on the other 3 sides, close with a slip stitch in the first single crochet of the starting corner, and meet me again in round 42. Before we are starting with round 42, I have a confession to make. I made you put in some stitch markers that were not necessary, and these are the 2 that I'm talking about. Those are the 2 middle stitch markers that we placed in those top loops. We won't need them, and I do apologize if that screwed up your stitch marker count. I'm sorry for that. So let's just take them out, and we won't need them. So to start round 42, we make a chain 1, then we work our first single crochet in the chain 1 space of the corner, chain 1 again, front post double crochet around this front post here, another chain 1, and then single crochet in the chain 1 corner space. That's still part of the corner. Our next stitch is going to be a split spike stitch, and we work this over the first single crochet after the corner, and we go 1, 2 ahead and 1, 2 stitches down, in order to make sure that I'm going to find this stitch after I've worked the split spike. I'm going to temporarily place a stitch marker here. Because I'm going forward with a split spike, it could potentially be difficult to find the correct next stitch to work around, to work into. So I'm just going to place this stitch marker. Now, as I said, this is 2 ahead and 2 rounds down. And I want to make sure that I'm coming out at the correct place, which is just under the 3rd loop on the back side. And I'm giving a bit of leeway here, being quite generous. And then I work a single crochet in that stitch that I marked with that stitch marker. Now we can take it out. So that's the first stitch here, the split spike, then a single crochet. Now we're going to work a front post treble. I'm going to work it +1, -2. So I'm going 1 stitch ahead and 1, 2 rounds below, which is this stitch here. Just working around that stitch. I skip the stitch behind this front post treble, and starting from the next, I'm going to work 21 single crochet. And you will notice that when we get to those popcorns, you just have to make sure, not popcorns, the small roses, sorry. Just have to make sure that we're working in only the closing chain. So this was the last single crochet before the small rose, and this is the closing chain of the small rose. That'll be the 9th, the 13th, and the 17th stitch here. So that's 13. Just have to work in the closing chain, and not in this part. That's not the part of the stitch. We work in the closing chain. So that's a 17, 80, 90, 20, and 21, which should bring you just above this 2 together stitch where we worked the DCBB. And we're going to work another small rows into those top loops that are free from this 2 together stitch. So DC in those top loops, chain 1, another DC, chain 1, and then a third double crochet into that same top loop, and just close that rows, small rows as we did before. Then we work 1 single crochet in the next stitch after we've skipped 1 behind the small rows. Now we're going to work a treble in those top loops. These you would have marked with a stitch marker. It's the top loop of this stitch here, and go through both loops. Then we skip the stitch behind this treble, and then we work 1 stitch, 1 single crochet. And now you have to just be mindful, we're not, or where you may want to work into this stitch here, but I have marked the 3rd loop, and instead of working in those top loops, I will be working in the 3rd loop, which I still have marked with that stitch marker, and which I now can take out. So that was 1, 2, and the 3rd of those single crochets goes into the single crochet just directly after the row spot. So that's 3 single, that's a treble, 3 single crochet, and now we're going to make a double treble into this marked stitch here, where we have the 2 top loops again of that stitch. So that's the double treble. I can take this one out, and again skipping the stitch behind the double treble, we'll make 1, 2, and the second goes into the 3rd loop, and then the 3rd directly after the row spot. And now we're going to work another double treble in the next stitch. Let me just take this out first so you can maybe see it a little bit better. That's the top loops of this double treble that we made earlier. We're going to make a double treble into this stitch again. Skip the stitch behind this double treble and work 1, 2, second in the 3rd loop, 3, 4, we work 11, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 10th goes, the 10th single crochet again goes into this 3rd loop, 10, and 11. So the 10th single crochet goes into the 3rd loop, or if you wish, you can work it into this stitch here in the top loop of this stitch, but then you have to skip the 3rd loop. And then we're going to work another double treble into the top loops of this stitch. We've already worked into it, we work into it one more time. 1, 2, 3 for the double treble. Skip the stitch behind this double treble, and then 1, 2, and I've worked the second in the 3rd loop again, 3 single crochet, another double treble, again in the top loops of the stitch where we already worked into before. Work into it one more time. 3, then skip the next stitch here, and then 1, 2, 3 single crochet, and then the treble. work a treble into this last stitch that we have marked here. See, that's the last of those trellises. Skip the stitch behind this treble, work 1 single crochet, and then again a small rose in the top loops of this 2 together stitch, which are free because we worked a DCBB behind it. Well, a DC behind and below. So a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet again in the same top loops, chain 1, and 1 more double crochet, same stitch again. And we close it with a chain 1. Now from here we're working 21 single crochet again, and here it is the 5th stitch that is worked into this closing chain of the small rows, then the 9th and the 13th. So here we've got the 9th single crochet that I'm working into this closing chain, and then my clay is getting too big and it's falling off the table. Okay, 13, and 21. So now we're going to work a front post again. Now it's 1 behind the next stitch and again 2 rounds below, which is this front post treble. And we again work a front post treble, -1, -2 in that case. So, and then we skip the next stitch, where you skip the stitch behind the front post treble. We work into the next stitch, which is 1 before the last, and then we're going to work that split spike. So counting from the last, we go 1, 2 stitches back and 1, 2 rounds below. This is where we're going to insert our hook, and I'm just pulling this leg to the side a little bit, making sure that I'm coming out under the 3rd loop on the back side, and then I pull up the loop to the side and up. And now we're working over this stitch. It doesn't look like it because we're still here, and with the next stitch we anchor this split spike stitch down, and the next stitch goes into the corner space, into that chain 1 corner space. Chain 1, front post DC, that's part of the corner. Okay, so that's it. It's not a difficult round 42. So you just repeat it on the other 3 sides and then close with a slip stitch into the first single crochet of that starting corner here, and we'll meet for round 43. Before we embark on the adventure, or on the journey that is called round 43, let's just place some stitch markers that we haven't done yet. They will help us in this round anyway. So we're going to place stitch markers, I've got color C in green here, into the top loops of the double trebles and the trebles that we made in the previous round. So let's just put them here. And put them in all of those top loops. This, and one more. Should be 6. There we go. Okay, so now for round 43, it's a very challenging or demanding round. You really have to concentrate. It's not I just do it on the side watching Netflix round. We started with a chain 1, the single crochet in the chain 1 corner here, chain 1 again, front post DC, chain 1, and a single crochet in the chain 1 corner. So just like we did before. Now it starts harmless again. It's again one of those rounds that makes you think, oh, that looks easy, and then it comes to bite you in the back. So 1, 2, so it's 6 single crochet altogether, 3, 4, 5, 6 single crochet. The next stitch is a split spike -1, -2. Let's go real slow in this round. So from the next we count -1, -2, -1, -2. So we're here. Checking that it's under the third loop, which it is. And then pull up the loop. So this is the stitch I'm working over. And I just work in the next. Make 2 single crochet. So in the next, and then 1 more single crochet. Then we're going to work a front post treble, which is a -1, -3, -1, -1, 2, 3. So we're working a front post treble around this stitch here. 1, 2, 3. Skip the stitch behind the front post treble, and from here 3 single crochet, or from the next 3 single crochet, a single crochet in the back loop only, and then 9 single crochet. 1, 2, 8 and 9. Okay, so now let the fun begin. We're starting with a double treble plus 4 -1. Double treble 3 times yarn over, starting to count from the next stitch, which is this one. We go ahead 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh yay, we have a stitch marker here, so we work into that stitch with a stitch marker. Maybe, or maybe you don't have one, but it's the top loop of the treble from the previous round, and we're working a double treble. Then we skip the stitch behind this double treble, and we start to work 3 single crochets starting from the next stitch. The second of those will go in the top loop of in the closing chain of the small rows that we made in the previous round. So that's 2, and then there is the third just before that treble here. The next stitch is a 2 together C, and with a 2 together C, the first leg goes into the top loops of the stitch that was skipped when we made the double treble in the previous round, the treble here in the previous round. So an unfinished DC. Then the next leg is a double treble that goes ahead 4 stitches. So we count from here, which is the stitch we work over, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we are lucky because it's easy to recognize as either a top loops with a stitch marker or the top loops of the double treble here. So, and then together. Okay, now we skip this treble here, which is the stitch behind the 2 together C, and from here, from the next, we work 3 single crochet again. 1, 2, 3, and we repeat what we just did. So the 2 together C, first leg is the double crochet into the top loops of the stitch that we skipped. 1, 2, 3 times yarn over, and we go ahead 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the top loop of the double treble from the previous round, and then through all 3 loops. Now again we skip this double treble, and then we work 3 single crochet again. Now we kind of do the same thing, but with a slight variation. So we start with the double crochet leg, and the next leg will be worked in the front loop only of the stitch, that is 4 stitches ahead and 1 round below. So yarn over 3 times again for the double treble leg, then 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches ahead and working in the front loop only, and then finishing the double treble leg and through all 3 loops. We skip this double treble here, and now we're working 2 single crochet. Okay. Our next stitch is a double treble again, which we're working into the front loop, that is 3 stitches ahead and 3 rounds below. So we count from here: 1, 2, 3 ahead, 1, 2, 3 below, and maybe you have marked it with a stitch marker. So that stitch is worked in the front loop. Okay, so now we need to make sure that we are skipping the correct stitches. We have that 1 stitch here, that single crochet just before this back loop single crochet. This is replaced by the double treble, so we skip this stitch and we work in the back loop only with a single crochet of the stitch, the same stitch that contains this double treble plus 4 minus 1. Okay, so that's the same stitch. We worked in the front loop only, and now our next stitch goes in the back loop only. And from here, or from the next stitch, we work 3 single crochet and another single crochet in the back loop only. And now we're going back into that front loop here, which is 3 behind and 3 rounds below the next stitch. We just go back in the same front loop. 1, 2, 3, and over. Okay, and then we skip the stitch behind this double treble and we work 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, and now we are here above this double treble from the previous round. But we have to work backwards now. So we, as you see, we change direction here. That's the center. So now we work backwards. And our first leg is, so this was, sorry, I didn't mention it. This was the 2 together E, and our next stitch here is going to be the 2 together F. So we're going back 4 stitches, which is the same stitch in which we worked a single crochet in back loop only. Not this one, that's the one we skipped for the double treble, but the one before. You see here, there's the free front loop. That's where we work this double treble leg into. And then the second leg is the double crochet leg, which goes behind this double treble in those top loops of the stitch that we skipped. Okay, so that's that. That's the 2 together F. Now 3 single crochet, and then we work a 2 together D, and again we're going back with a long leg, so the double treble leg goes back in the top loops of the double treble here. And then you make a double crochet again behind the next double treble from the previous round in the stitch, you know, that's behind this double treble. Okay, that's that, and we repeat that. 3 single crochet, and then backwards into the top loops of the double treble with another double treble leg. That's the first leg. 1, 2, 3, and behind the next double treble with a double crochet, and then together. Now we're going to continue in the next stitch, and we're working 3 single crochet again, and the second of those 3 goes again in the closing chain of the small rows. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Now we just have to finish this trellis with a double treble, and this time it's going to be a -4, which will be worked in the top loops of the last treble we made in the last round. Double treble, there we go, and then we skip the stitch behind the double treble, and from here we work 9 single crochet. And 9, then a single crochet in the back loop only, 3 single, now we're working a front post treble +1 -3, +1 -3, so that's this front post treble here. We skip the stitch behind this front post treble. We'll make 2 single crochet, and now we're working a split spike ahead. So we may place a stitch marker just temporarily, just in case. So we work +1 -2, 1, 2. Work into this stitch here. Making sure I come out at the right place. I do. Pulling it back, and then working in the next stitch. That's the first of 6 single crochet. Five and 6, and that brings us to the end of the side. And this is the first single crochet in the chain 1 space of the corner, chain 1, front post DC, chain 1, and then we are around on the next side. Okay, so so that is the complete side. A few tricky points, just making sure here that you work in the same stitch when you go forwards and backwards with this double treble that is worked in the front loop. And yeah, and the rest is, as I said, just a matter of counting and a little bit of concentration, but you got this. So let's do it on the other 3 sides. Of course, feel free to rewind and repeat, and then close with a slip stitch into the first of the first single crochet of the starting corner, and then we continue in round 44. Let's just place some stitch markers first. I forgot. We've got some free front loops here, so let's place a stitch marker here in this free front loop here at the beginning, and one here at the end. And you will notice they're not symmetrical between these small roses, and that is intentional. That's okay. So that's correct. It's not directly in the middle between those small roses. So don't worry about that. And then we place also a stitch marker in each of those double trebles. +4, -1, and -4, -1 that we made here, the first and the last here. So that's the stitch marker placement. And now you continue, and then we meet for round 44. From round 44 on, we're going to work the normal corner again. So we chain 1 at the beginning of the round only, and then we go into that chain 1 corner space with a single crochet, we chain 2, and then we go in the next chain 1 corner space and make a single crochet there as well. Then we continue with 3 single crochet. Our next stitch is a front post treble +1 -2. So we go ahead 1 and down 1, 2. So there we go. And then we continue. We skip the stitch behind the front post treble, and we continue with 9 single crochet. Nine. Now we're going to do our famous DC back loop DC combination, so you know that one already. We're working a DC in the front loop of the stitch that is 1 ahead and 2 rounds below. 1 ahead, 2, 1, 2 rounds below. Then we work a single crochet in front loop, in back loop only of the stitch that is above this free front loop here. And then we'll work a DC that goes 1 stitch back and 2 rounds below, which is the same front loop that we just worked in already. Skipping the stitch behind the DC, we continue with 8 single crochet. Okay, now we're going to make a DCBB, which means we're working a double crochet in the top loops of the stitch that was skipped in the previous round. Double crochet, and from here 14 single crochet. And you have a choice on the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th on this side. You can either just work normally in those 2 loops here, or, and this is what I'm going to do, is that I'm going to add those 2 loops that they lie, not sure how you can see them properly, they're lying exactly below those other loops, and if I include them here, then I'm going to anchor the stitch down a little bit further or a little bit better. So as I said, that's the 4th, then the 8th, and the 12th. You can see them here. Oh, here you can see them quite well. And then 2 more to have 14 single crochet all together. Now from here I'm continuing with a split spike again. And I do apologize about the cat hair. I've got that everywhere because my cat loves to play with this particular square because it's made of wool. It's obviously irresistible. Okay, on with the pattern. It's a split spike plus 2 minus 2. We start to count from this stitch. We go ahead 1, 2, and we go down 1, 2 stitches. Then, yep, comes out at the right place. I'm going to pull this to the side, and I'm going to work in the next single crochet. Maybe I should have used a stitch marker to just make it easier for me to find the next stitch. I just happened to get on with it quite well. Okay, so now a double treble, 0 minus 4, which is made between those double trebles that we made in the previous round. You see we've got those double trebles and we just work in between those. And we skip the stitch behind, 2 more single crochet. Now we go back with a split spike. We go back 1, 2, 1, 2. So minus 2, minus 2. And here we are. And I know that I just need to skip this stitch and work into the next, where I'm starting to work 14 single crochets again. And you will see that we've got the same situation here. And I'm going to include them as well. And on this side, it'll be the 3rd, the 7th, and the 11th stitch that I'm going to work over in that kind of way. So that was the 3rd, and this is going to be the 7th, and now 3 more stitches, which brings me here to that stitch that was a double treble minus 4 minus 1 in the previous round. And again I'm going to work a double crochet in the top loops of that stitch that was skipped in the previous round. 8 single crochet, then again the DC back loop DC combination, DC back loop DC. We skip 1 stitch, or the stitch behind the last DC, and now it's 9 single crochet. And again we're working around this front post treble here. This time it's minus 1, minus 2. We go back 1 stitch and down 1, 2. Yarn over twice, front post treble, skip the stitch behind the treble, and we finish the side with 3 single crochet. And remember, we've got the normal corner again, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and the single crochets go into those chain 1 spaces. Now for stitch marker placement, I'm going to place 1 stitch marker here. Oops, what happened here? Oh, I had that in the back. Look at that. I'll have to pull that through to the front. Did you see how that happened? I didn't even notice. Just wondering where it went. Okay, so we've got a stitch marker here in that double treble 0 minus 4. And we're going to just replace those here between those double crochets that we made our combination DC back loop DC combination. I'm getting this one here as well. There we go. And that's it for stitch marker placement. So now all you have to do is to repeat this on the other 3 sides, and then we're going to work round 45, which is going to be the last round of Claire 3.2, and it's going to be a little bit laborious, but we get to that after you've finished round 44, and I'll see you there. As you can see, having all those stitch markers here, round 45 is not only laborious, it's also very stitch marker intense. So let's get started with it. We start with a chain 1 and then a normal single crochet corner, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. And our first stitch is a split spike. I'm going to use this temporary marker here. Oh no, sorry, our first stitch is a single crochet, and from here we are going 2 ahead and 1 round down. So usually we would be making a split spike, but going into this stitch just here can be a bit tricky. So first I'm going to place a stitch marker in my next stitch just for now. And second, I'm going to cheat, and instead of making a split spike, I'm just going to make a normal spike stitch, which means that I'm inserting my hook just under the stitch here. And feel free to do that as well. But if you want to, you know, be really strict and stick to what the instructions say, by all means, make a split spike. And then the next stitch goes into the one that I've marked. We're only making 10 single crochet from here. Oops. Let me just double check. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A single crochet in the back loop only. 2 more single crochet, and the last of those should go into the top of this double crochet. Now we're going to work the small rows part, where we're making a double crochet into that front loop that you may have marked with a stitch marker. Otherwise, just grab it from between those double crochets here. So double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet in the same front loop, another chain 1, and another double crochet. And then we close this like we would with a popcorn and make a chain 1. We skip the stitch behind this rows, the small rows, and starting to count from the next stitch, we make 3 single crochet. Now here comes our first big rows, and the big row starts like a rosebud. So I'm making one single crochet in the back loop only of the next stitch. I'm going to mark the third loop with a stitch marker, 2 more single crochet, then I find the front loop, turn in my work, 4 single crochet in the front loop only of the same stitch here, 4, and I'm going to turn again. So now I've got that first third loop, and I'll be working 2 single crochet in that, and in each third loop around. So now I've got 2, 3, 4, you should have 14 in the end. 5, 6, continuing to turn. 7 and 8, then 9 and 10, 11, 12, and the last 2. Continue to turn, and I'm going to make a slip stitch in that third loop here, and then you just have to find the next stitch, which is quite easy to see. From here we're making 3 single crochet, and now we're going to make a quite number of butt stitches. We're making 4, so 3 single and a rosebud butt stitch. And again I'm going to place the stitch marker in this third loop, just so that it's easier to close to find the correct stitch, but also so that I know where to work into in the next round. And 4 single crochet in the front loop of the same stitch, and because it's only a butt stitch, I'm now going to close it, and then again, so 3 single, and then the butt stitch. We do this 4 times altogether. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm just going to do this, and I'll meet you when we both have 4 butt stitches made. So here we are with the 4 butt stitches made, and after the last one we're going to work 2 single crochet. Now we're working a front post, and that's a treble, front post treble plus 2 minus 2. So we go 1, 2 ahead and 1, 2 rounds below. That's this double treble that we made earlier. We skip the stitch behind the double treble, and we'll make 4 single crochet. Now we're working a DCBB just behind this double treble here, and another 4 single crochet. Okay, now we're working the companion of this stitch. We're working a front post treble minus 2 minus 2. So going around the double treble, we skip the stitch behind the double treble, and we've got 2 single crochet. Now we're working the butt stitches again, and from here it is butt stitch 3 single, butt stitch 3 single 4 times. And I'm going to meet you, you know, we've done the butt stitches often enough. I'm very confident that you know how to do them, and we're going to meet after we both made those 4 butt stitches. 3 single butt, we've got the 3 single, so we start with the butt, 3 single butt 4 times. Let's double check. We've got 3 single crochet butt stitch 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're working another 3 single crochet, and we've got the big rows again. So we start like a butt stitch, placing a stitch marker in the 3rd loop of the 1st single crochet, another 2 single crochet in the back loop of the same stitch, finding the front loop, turn, 4 single crochet in the front loop of the same stitch, turn again. Now we're going to work 2 single crochet in the 3rd loop of the 1st stitch, which is still marked with that stitch marker, and all the way around. 2 and 3, 3 and 4, I mean. 5 and 6, 7 and 8. I'm turning a little bit. 9 and 10. 11, 12, and almost there. 13 and 14. And then again, I'm going to slip stitch into this 3rd loop here. Mind you, you could, if you want to, just continue in the next stitch. So I've got 2 stitches left before we come to the small rows, and we'll make 2 single crochet. Oops, there we go. This here was like a little battle. We've got those 2 double crochet, and between those is a free front loop. And we're going to work the small rows again. So double crochet in that loop, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, and 1 more double crochet into that same front loop here, and closing with a chain 1. From here we have 2 single crochet. So I've skipped the stitch behind these small rows, and the first of those 2 single crochet was worked in the top of the double crochet here. So as I said, 2 single crochet in the back loop only, and then 10 single crochet. There we go. And now we've got the split spike -2 -1. And again, I admit it, I'm going to cheat. I go 2 stitches back, and I'm working not as a split spike, but I'm just going underneath this stitch. This is the one that I'm working over, and we've got 1 single crochet left, and then we are in the corner. Whew. So this round may take a little while, but you'll be rewarded with those beautiful rosebuds and with a big rose here, and on the other side of course as well. So additional stitch marker placements, we're going to, I hope it's not too loud, place a stitch marker in those 3 front loops here. We've got those on the side, just 2 beside the small rows on either side. And that's it in terms of stitch marker placement. So just repeat on the other 3 sides and then meet me in part 3.3. So this is the end of 3.2 and we'll be together again in 3.3.